Sometimes the most painful truths are the ones we feel long before we're ready to say them out loud. When someone dislikes you, deeply, consistently, and quietly, you often sense it in your body before you ever understand it in your mind. We pick up on tone, energy, and emotional undercurrents even when the words sound polite. And while hate is a strong word, the signs that someone holds resentment, contempt, or hostility toward you are often subtle, disguised as small behaviors that slowly chip away at your emotional safety. Trusting the energy behind people's behavior is one of the most underappreciated forms of wisdom we have. Long before our minds interpret what is happening, our bodies register it. We sense tension before we hear a harsh word. We feel distance before anyone announces it. We notice resistance, discomfort, or judgment even when someone is smiling at us. This kind of awareness isn't paranoia. It's intuition built through experience, pattern recognition, and emotional intelligence. When people tell you who they are through their energy, believe it. Most of us are taught to second-guess ourselves. We're encouraged to look for proof, to rationalize the behavior of others, or to downplay moments where something just feels off. But energy doesn't lie. Someone can carefully craft their sentences, but they cannot hide the truth in their tone. They can act polite, but the coldness in their eyes will expose the gap between what they're saying and what they're actually feeling. They can pretend to care, but the inconsistency in their responses, slow, detached, dismissive, reveals the truth. Trusting energy means noticing how someone's presence affects you. Do you feel safe around them? Do you feel tense? Do you find yourself shrinking, over-explaining, or adjusting your personality to avoid conflict? These reactions are not drama, they are data. Your nervous system is often the first to sense misalignment. It's warning you that something isn't right, that the connection is unstable, or that your emotional well-being isn't valued by this person. Sometimes the energy shift is subtle, a slight change in tone, a shorter response, a look that lingers a moment too long. Other times it's obvious. Sarcasm replacing sincerity, indifference overshadowing warmth, or a sudden lack of effort from someone who once invested in the relationship. And then there are those moments where you feel the emotional temperature drop, even though nothing has been said. These moments matter. They tell you more than any explanation could. Trusting the energy behind someone's behavior also means letting go of the need to justify it. You don't need a long list of reasons to validate your discomfort. You don't need to wait for someone to hurt you in a bigger, more undeniable way. You don't have to keep giving chances to people whose energy continually drains, confuses, or belittles you. When the energy is consistently wrong, the relationship is already telling you the truth. More importantly, trusting energy is an act of self-respect. It means honoring your intuition instead of gaslighting yourself. It means choosing to believe what you feel rather than what you wish were true. And it means accepting that sometimes the people around you are not who they pretend to be. When you stop ignoring the energy behind someone's behavior, you stop betraying yourself for the sake of maintaining peace. You stop shrinking to fit into spaces that no longer hold you. And you start moving toward people whose energy feels honest, warm, and expansive. People who don't just say the right things, but whose presence feels right. Paying attention to who celebrates your failures is one of the clearest ways to see a person's true relationship with you. Most people can pretend to be kind when everything is going smoothly in your life, when you're succeeding, achieving, and shining. But the moments when you stumble, struggle, or fall are revealing. They expose the people who are genuinely connected to your heart and the ones who are only connected to your circumstances. Failure doesn't just test your resilience, it tests the loyalty and integrity of the people around you. There are individuals who will offer you sympathy with their words, but their eyes tell a different story. They may say, "I'm so sorry," but there's a flicker of satisfaction they can't fully hide. They may check in on you, but something in their tone feels lighter, as if your setback has given them a sense of relief. These people don't necessarily wish you harm, they simply feel more comfortable when you're not doing better than them. Your success threatens them, your progress challenges them. But your failures? Those moments give them space to breathe. Sometimes it's not what people say, but what they don't say. When you succeed, they go quiet. When you share good news, they look away. When you celebrate a win, they seem unimpressed or uninterested. But as soon as you face a setback, suddenly they're very present. They want the details. They want the story. They want to linger in your difficulty a little longer than feels appropriate. That kind of behavior isn't support, it's disguised satisfaction. There are also people who will use your failures to subtly elevate themselves. They might say things like, "I knew that would happen," or "That's why I told you to be careful." They frame your setback as validation for their own opinions or as an opportunity to appear wiser or superior. It's a quiet form of gloating, even when disguised as concern. Pay attention to this. Anyone who uses your vulnerability as a stage for their ego is not standing with you, they're standing on you. Failure has a unique way of cleaning your circle. It exposes who was clapping because they loved you and who was clapping because they loved seeing you fall. The people who genuinely care about you will feel your pain with you. Their energy will soften when you're hurting. They will check in not because your struggle entertains them, but because your well-being matters to them. They will remind you of your strength, not your mistakes. When you start paying attention to who celebrates your failures, you begin to understand why certain people never clapped for your wins. You stop forcing loyalty where there is quiet resentment. And you learn to invest your energy in people who feel your victories as joy and your losses as compassion, people whose hearts expand when you rise, not when you fall. Knowing who these people are is not just awareness, it's protection. It allows you to surround yourself with those who want you to grow, not those waiting for you to break. You can't control someone's narrative about you, no matter how honest your intentions are or how carefully you communicate. Some people will see you through the lens of their own wounds, insecurities, and assumptions. They will interpret your actions based on stories they've already written in their minds, stories that often have nothing to do with who you truly are. Trying to reshape their perception becomes an exhausting, endless cycle where you sacrifice your peace just to earn understanding from someone who has no desire to understand you in the first place. People filter your behavior through their own experiences. If they've been betrayed before, they may assume you're untrustworthy. If they're competitive, they may view your success as a threat. If they struggle with insecurity, they might misinterpret your confidence as arrogance. And if they're dealing with their own unresolved pain, they might place you in roles you never auditioned for: villain, rival, inconvenience, or target. You can clarify your intentions again and again, but if someone has committed to a distorted narrative, your honesty becomes irrelevant. It's tempting to over-explain yourself to people who misunderstand you. You feel the urge to defend your character, to clean up the misinterpretations, to prove your heart is in the right place. But explanations don't fix narratives that were built from resentment rather than truth. In fact, the more you try to correct someone's perception, the more power you give them over your emotional world. You end up handing them the authority to define you when that authority should have never left your hands. Letting go of the need to control someone's narrative is an act of freedom. It means accepting that some people are not meant to see you clearly. It means recognizing that their version of you is a reflection of them, not a reflection of your worth. You can offer clarity where needed, but you are not responsible for dragging someone out of their assumptions. You are not required to shrink your truth to fit their storyline. Sometimes the story they create about you serves a purpose for them. It might allow them to avoid accountability. It might justify their own behavior. It might protect their ego or give them a sense of control. Realizing this can be painful, but it's also liberating. You stop blaming yourself for the way they interpret you. You stop carrying the weight of their projections. When you no longer chase their understanding, you reclaim your energy. You start choosing relationships where communication is open, mutual, and grounded in goodwill, not suspicion or hostility. You surround yourself with people who ask questions instead of making assumptions, who seek clarity instead of drama, and who want to know you rather than judge you. The truth is simple. You can't control someone's narrative about you, but you can control how much access you give them. You can control your boundaries, your responses, and the space you create around your peace. And the moment you stop trying to prove yourself to people determined to misunderstand you, you become stronger, lighter, and infinitely more free. Exclusion speaks louder than arguments because silence often reveals truths that words try to hide. When someone doesn't want you in their space, their energy withdraws long before they ever verbalize it. They don't argue, they don't confront, they don't explain. Instead, they simply leave you out of conversations, plans, decisions, inside jokes, or emotional closeness. And that absence speaks with a clarity that no debate ever could. You don't need loud conflict to know when someone has mentally checked out. You only need to pay attention to where you're no longer invited. Exclusion is a form of communication. It is intentional, whether subtle or obvious. People who value you make space for you. They remember to include you, even in the small things. They reach out. They make an effort. But when someone withdraws access without explanation, it tells you something essential about where you stand in their life. The space they once held for you has shrunk or disappeared altogether, and instead of addressing it, they choose avoidance. This avoidance often reveals emotional truth far more honestly than any carefully crafted statement. One of the most painful aspects of exclusion is its quietness. There's no confrontation to resolve, no dialogue to clear the air, no moment where you get to understand what went wrong. You just slowly notice you're missing. You realize conversations happened without you. Events were planned around you. People shared experiences you didn't even know about. And the silence, the absence of your name, of your presence, of your inclusion, begins to scream. That scream is the truth you didn't want to hear. Exclusion hurts because it disrupts one of our most basic human needs, belonging. It makes you question your worth, your place, and your value in someone else's life. But the pain itself is information. It highlights the imbalance in the relationship. It shows who considers you essential and who considers you optional. And while arguments can often be worked through, exclusion leaves no path toward repair because it signals a lack of desire to maintain the connection at all. Sometimes, exclusion is a quiet form of punishment. Instead of confronting you or communicating their feelings, someone may choose to freeze you out. They may think that ignoring you communicates neutrality, when in reality it communicates resentment or disinterest. Other times, exclusion is simply an indicator that the emotional closeness has faded. Either way, it sends a message. You are not part of their inner world anymore. When you accept the truth that exclusion reveals, you stop trying to claw your way back into spaces that no longer honor you. You stop chasing people who have already decided to distance themselves. And you start valuing those who show up consistently, who invite you with sincerity, who remember your presence without hesitation. Inclusion is a reflection of genuine care. Exclusion is a reflection of emotional disconnection. The moment you choose to listen to what exclusion is telling you, you reclaim your dignity. You stop mourning spaces that weren't designed to hold you anymore. You realize that your worth isn't determined by who leaves you out, but by who chooses you freely, openly, and wholeheartedly. Small undermining behaviors reveal big truths because people rarely show their deepest feelings through grand gestures. They expose them through subtle, repeated patterns that accumulate over time. These behaviors are often disguised as harmless jokes, casual remarks, or minor criticisms, but their impact is anything but small. They chip away at your confidence, your comfort, and your sense of safety in the relationship. And the more consistently they appear, the more clearly they reveal what someone actually feels beneath the surface. Undermining usually begins quietly. Maybe it's a sarcastic comment about your abilities, a dismissive tone when you share an idea, or a joke made at your expense in front of others. It can show up as someone correcting you unnecessarily, downplaying your achievements, or pointing out your mistakes with a little too much enthusiasm. These moments are easy to overlook individually. You might tell yourself you're being too sensitive or reading too much into it. But when a pattern forms, the truth becomes undeniable. These small actions are reflections of deeper feelings: resentment, insecurity, envy, or contempt. People who harbor negative emotions toward you often avoid direct confrontation. Instead, they use micro-attacks, small, socially acceptable ways of expressing hostility. A subtle eye roll, a smirk, a quiet "you always" that hits harder than it seems. A backhanded compliment that sounds supportive but feels like a blow. These behaviors allow them to release their resentment while still maintaining plausible deniability. If you call it out, they might say you're overreacting or that they were just joking. But your body knows better. You feel the shift, you feel the sting. The purpose of undermining, whether conscious or not, is to make you doubt yourself. When someone can't rise to your level, they try to pull you down to theirs. They use small comments to shrink your voice, weaken your confidence, or make you question your worth. And while the attacks may feel minor on the surface, their hidden message is loud. They do not want to see you strong. They do not want to see you secure. They want to keep you off balance because it makes them feel more in control. But here's the real truth. Small behaviors often reveal more than big ones. Big conflicts can be resolved with honest communication, but small, repeated jabs indicate something deeper, something the person doesn't want to admit or address. These behaviors show how they truly feel about you when their guard is down. They show a lack of respect, a lack of empathy, or a lack of goodwill. And no relationship can thrive without those things. Paying attention to these subtle patterns is not being dramatic. it is being emotionally intelligent. The tiny remarks, the tone shifts, the micro expressions, they form a bigger picture. And that picture tells you whether someone is building you up or slowly tearing you down. When you start recognizing undermining behaviors for what they truly are, you stop giving people the benefit of the doubt at the expense of your emotional well-being. You stop tolerating environments that diminish you, and you begin making room for relationships where support is genuine, where respect is natural, and where your growth is something to be celebrated, not resented. Their hatred is not your responsibility, and the moment you truly accept that, something inside you finally breathes again. You stop carrying the emotional weight that was never meant for you. You stop trying to fix what you didn't break. You stop bending yourself into painful shapes just to make someone like you, understand you, or treat you with fairness. Hatred, whether subtle or loud, is born within the person who holds it. It is shaped by their experiences, wounds, insecurities, and narratives. You may trigger it, but you did not create it. And you cannot heal it by sacrificing pieces of yourself. When someone dislikes you, especially without real cause, it's tempting to search for the reason within yourself. You wonder if you said something wrong, if you should have been kinder, quieter, more agreeable, less confident. You replay conversations in your mind, trying to pinpoint the moment things shifted. But this habit of self-blame is a trap. People can project their unresolved pain onto you without you doing anything wrong. They may see you as competition, as a mirror to their inadequacy, or as a reminder of something they don't want to face. Their dislike can come from jealousy, fear, insecurity, or misunderstanding, and none of these are yours to untangle. Trying to win over someone who has already decided to resent you only leads to emotional exhaustion. You give more, and they take more. You explain more, and they distort more. You try harder, and somehow it only confirms the version of you they've already committed to believing. It becomes an endless chase for approval from someone who has no intention of offering it. That is not peace, it's self-abandonment. The truth is, you can be a good person with a sincere heart and still be disliked. You can be kind and still be targeted. You can be genuine and still be misunderstood. Someone hating you doesn't automatically mean you did something to deserve it. Sometimes your light irritates someone who hasn't yet found their own. Sometimes your boundaries threaten someone who benefited from your lack of them. Sometimes your confidence triggers someone who lives in comparison. None of that is your responsibility to fix. Releasing the responsibility for someone else's hatred doesn't mean you become cold or uncaring. It means you stop giving your power to the wrong places. It means you stop negotiating your worth with people who cannot see it. It means you protect your emotional landscape from being shaped by someone else's storms. You learn to stay rooted in who you are, even when someone else is determined to see you differently. There is freedom in allowing people to feel however they choose without letting it define you. There is strength in choosing peace over proving yourself. There is dignity in walking away from spaces where your presence is met with hostility, quiet, or loud. Your responsibility is your own integrity, your growth, your healing. Your truth, how someone chooses to feel about you, especially when you've done nothing to deserve their animosity, is a reflection of their inner world, not your value. And the moment you stop absorbing their emotions as your burden, you reclaim your worth and walk back into your own life with clarity, confidence, and power.